In a towering high-rise building, inside a sterile conference room, a man sat across from a woman. Just outside, the staff was gathered. The pink-haired staff member was curious about the woman inside. The black-haired staffer replied that it was Xiao Hei's girlfriend, and she was here to break up with him. But the pink-haired staff member couldn't believe she was dumping him. Right here at the company, she commented that the woman was pretty wild. Inside the conference room, the woman declared to Xiao Hei, "I can't go on living with a useless guy like you." Xiao Hei asked why she was so angry, but when she told him, his pathetic appearance disgusted her. It left him utterly speechless. The woman then stated that back then, she'd chosen to be with him simply because she saw his cultivation potential. Even though he didn't get into a decent cultivation university, he was at least a descendant of a declining cultivator family. But they'd been together for quite some time now, and yet his pitiful lineage remained dormant. She blamed him for wasting 3 months of her beautiful youth and making her miss out on many immortal prospects. Xiao Hei felt small as she berated him. He replied that he'd emptied his savings to give her so many spirit stones and all kinds of spiritual energy jewels. She only grew angrier when he mentioned that. She then claimed the trash he gave her had weak spiritual energy that was utterly insignificant. She compared it to the earring given to her by young Master Lai, which was overflowing with spiritual energy. It could dispel evil, protect the body, and even enhance beauty. The pink-haired staff member outside crashed the computer mouse in her hands. It immediately caught the ex-girlfriend's attention. The pink-haired staffer yelled at her for going too far. The black-haired staff member tried to calm her down. She reasoned they hadn't hit their team's monthly KPIs yet, so there was no need to get involved in other people's business. Hay spoke, clarifying his point. The angry ex-girlfriend turned to face him. He then demanded she return everything he'd given her. Rage tore through her as she sprang from her chair, her body quaking with fury. She then cursed him to be a loser his whole life and to die a horrible death. She then bolted, shouting as she left. Hay added she could just mail the items to him if bringing them was inconvenient, but she furiously replied that she'd throw them in the river before ever giving them back to him. He asked, which river? Because it would be a shame to throw them away. The pink-haired staff member found him interesting. The black-haired staffer told her to stop staring and warned that if she slacked off any longer, the manager would pop out of nowhere. And as if on cue, someone appeared behind her, asking what she was doing. It was the cultivation department manager, Zhang Jichan. He asked if she'd finished the KPIs for that month. She hadn't answered yet. When Jichan saw Hay sleeping, the pink-haired staff member explained his girlfriend had just left him, so he was a bit down, but he'd be fine soon. Ji Kyung didn't say anything else. Later that day, Hay sat at the edge of the roof. He glanced behind him when someone asked if he'd eaten lunch. It was Ji Kyung. He asked if Hay was in a bad mood. He then offered him a drink to relax. Hay was puzzled by his actions, because this old man usually glared at him, and now, out of the blue, he was being nice. After finishing the can, Hay was already drunk. He stood and spread his arms, yelling that his ex-girlfriend ate his food, drank his drinks, spent all his money, and even cheated on him. He yelled at her to die. He felt surprisingly good after that scream. He admitted he never expected the manager, who usually seemed so cold, to genuinely care so much about his subordinates. But then, he suddenly felt dizzy. He realized the soda contained something extra. He glanced at the can, and it reflected the manager's devilish grin. He fainted, only to awaken a few hours later. His head felt heavy, and when he opened his eyes, he was chained at the edge of a cliff. Someone noticed he was awake. It was Gikyon. He asked if there was some kind of mistake. Gikyon was about to tell him his intentions, but he cut him off, declaring he wasn't in a S&M. That irked Gikyon, so he punched him, seeing that he thought it was still funny. He urged him to look carefully below, to grasp the gravity of his situation. He saw a pair of eyes staring at him from that dark pit. It moved, and as it emerged, it revealed a terrifying dragon. Ji Qian. presented the sacrifice to this divine dragon lord. He told the dragon that even if that useless one hasn't awakened yet, his body still has the spiritual root of an ancient lineage, which makes him far more delicious than the sheep and pigs they used to bring. In exchange, the divine dragon gave him the promised condensation pill. Zikian got excited about making his major breakthrough. He left to resume his cultivation. The divine dragon asked him if he had any last words before he died. He glared at it and told the divine dragon it had bad breath. He suggested brushing its teeth before eating him. The divine dragon grew furious at his insolence. It claimed it was the Lord of the Clouds, master of the 9 heavens, bearer of thunder and rain, rider of the 4 seas. On top of that, it spent 3,000 years of silent cultivation in the abyss, and 80,000 years roaming the 9 heavens. Eventually, it grew embarrassed for losing its composure. It was displeased to have gotten angry over a mere mortal. It then grabbed him. Normally, it would gulp down the sacrifice in a single bite, but this time, it chose to offer him a unique treatment by savoring him bit by painful bit. He cried out that it couldn't. The creature scoffed, saying it was too late for pleas. But he quickly pointed out, I have athlete's foot, which would only make the dragon's breath absolutely horrific. He warned that the dragon's breath would become truly foul, and the putrid scent would linger. It'd be worse than morning breath, mixed with its ex-girlfriend's absolute stench socks. The dragon's voice boomed, silencing him, and then it viciously chomped down on him. Half of his body vanished down its maw. He screamed, claiming it hurt a bit, but his expression betrayed the unimaginable agony he truly felt. A strange mark manifested on his hand. It was severed as the dragon's jaws clamped down. The forbidden bloodline art roared to life. Its first technique was the light of life and death, which inflicted death mark upon its target, killing both the enemy and the user. The enemy experiences the exact same pain and damage. As long as the user survives the curse, his body will continue to revive. The subsequent skill was dual annihilation. Once this art is deployed, any bodies affected by the life and death curse will perish simultaneously. Unless there's intervention from a top tier, immortal magic, neither party has a prayer of revival. The spell is impervious to blocking or external interruption. Suddenly, a teacher's voice snapped him back to reality, interrogating him about the nonsense he was spouting. He blinked, looking around. He was, in fact, in a classroom. The teacher demanded he recite the 7 arts of body refinement. Yet he was rambling about life and curses. The teacher mused if he'd ingested too much body refinement medicine, causing him to hallucinate. His classmates snickered, laughing at him. Elsewhere in the faculty room, a female teacher conversed with Professor Een regarding the transfer student he admitted to his class. She figured this student must have remarkable talent. Otherwise, for a professor with his high admission standards to accept anyone, he replied, implying the boy had other talents. In reality, he had merely received a good sum. He figured the kid wouldn't even survive the first monthly exam anyway, so it was best to take on the debt. The entire class thought he was useless. They just kept laughing at him. He was completely unbothered, in fact. He wondered what talent the heavens had truly blessed him with. He was in the classroom, deep in thought. After being slain by the dragon, he suddenly woke up in his bed, and his spiritual root, which had been dormant for 20 years, suddenly awakened. The words of his ex-girlfriend echoed in his head, reminding him that he was the last descendant of a declining cultivator family. Suddenly, someone stepped on his desk. This guy immediately tried to intimidate him and lecture him about the class rules. He was told to hand over at least 1 bottle of body refinement pills, 1 bottle of Pei-Yuan pills, and 1 dose of Guban potion every single week. Their classmates saw John Jibei educating a newbie. Yet again, to them, it was a show worth watching. Our hero questioned why he would give him that, and also why he was stepping on a desk. Jibei claimed that it was his territory, so he'll step on it if he wants to. And besides, he usually jumps down from there. Unlike those weaklings who only use the stairs. Before he leaves, he threatens him if he doesn't deliver the goods. By the end of class that afternoon, he would tie him to the school's front light pole to publicly shame him. Our hero saw his feet stepping out of the window, and a thought crossed his mind. Our boy promptly slapped this bully's leg, causing him to fall awkwardly, landing squarely on his face. What a satisfying scene. Their classmates gawked at him from the classroom window. They just couldn't believe. He slammed face first onto the ground. But they weren't worried, because he practiced the 100-fold refined steel technique, so they expected that he wouldn't die from a fall like that. Some of them even felt a little bad, since if he died, they would rank up. He stayed on the ground for a few minutes, and when he finally got up, he told our hero not to leave. He'd end up with broken legs. The green-haired guy sitting in front of Hay told him off. He was totally screwed because Jabai was the notorious class bully, and he had never, ever been beaten before. His family was a powerful and influential academic, cultivation clan in the city, no less, and his body. Refinement technique had reached an insane level. He also shared that the last student who dared cross him had his entire family broken and dead. He warned him he could run, but he couldn't hide. He even tipped him off to avoid Gucci Alley after class. That's where they usually wait to ambush people. But for Hay, that path was unavoidable. Later that dusk, on Hay's way home, Hay saw the sign for Gucci Alley nearby. 3 men were waiting. One of them asked their boss, Jabai, if it was really necessary for all 3 of them to take care of some trash. Transfer student. The other guy replied, that the boss could crush that trash with just one hand, but it would be too lowly of him to do it personally. So they, the lackeys, would handle it. Jabai expected. The little bastard was probably trembling with fear, trying to figure out how to avoid the alley. But it didn't matter, because he had people in every direction, so he couldn't escape. The bald lackey gave him a thumbs up, while complimenting his planning. Unexpectedly, Hay showed up, asking them, who told you I was going to hide? The bald guy turned around and saw Hay approaching them. They couldn't believe. He just walked right into their trap. They assumed since he couldn't escape anyway, he just decided to accept death obediently. Jabai saw how this kid wasn't scared at all. He grew curious about what he was planning. He started thinking he could be that extremely rare type who hides their true strength and pretends to be weak, to launch a surprise attack. Hay called them cowards for not even daring to corner someone at the school gate. Instead, they pick an alley far out just to ambush someone. He grumbled about the immense effort it took just to arrive. He taunted them, daring them to attack him. One of the lackeys immediately lost his cool. He delivered a powerful kick, sending Hay crashing into a wall, leaving a massive dent embedded in it. They certainly hadn't expected him to be so feeble, especially after his earlier arrogant display. Jabai confirmed Hay was nothing more than a rookie, and that he had been overthinking things before. Hay slumped to the ground, his face a bloody mess. The bully menacingly stepped closer to him. He then informed Hay that his kick was no ordinary strike. It came from the 5th level of body refinement, meaning Hay's internal organs were severely damaged. He wouldn't be living much longer. Hay, despite his pitiful condition, scoffed that it hadn't hurt him in the slightest. He couldn't even call that a 5th refinement attack, because it was soft and utterly pathetic, like some loser who jerked off hundreds of times. The bully instantly blew his top. He couldn't wait for Hay to take his last breath. He vowed to smash Hay's head in with his kicks. Blood splattered, leaving Hay utterly bewildered. Jabai and the bald guy watched in sheer horror as his leg went flying directly past them. The bully then collapsed, screaming in agony. His severed leg gushed blood uncontrollably, as Hay simply cackled at his lost limb. Suddenly, a mysterious woman materialized. She stood protectively in front of Hay. Jabai couldn't fathom how she had just appeared. In the blink of an eye, even with the woman's back turned to them, the bald guy launched his assault. Jabai screamed at him not to unleash a lethal move here, as it would obliterate the entire vicinity. But he defied the warning, unleashing his powerful attack, called Death by Purple Gold Club. A colossal explosion ripped through the entire area. The reckless idiot demolished every nearby residence. He braced for his old man back home to absolutely erupt once he saw the aftermath. Eventually, the swirling smoke and dust began to clear. The bald guy stood utterly dumbfounded. Even Jabai's jaw hung open, his eyes wide with disbelief. The club had indeed landed squarely on the woman's head, yet she remained completely unharmed. A few moments before the scene unfolded, on a floating island beneath an ancient tree, here were the silver-haired woman and a white crane. They were playing Chinese checkers. The white crane then questioned the woman, known as Lord Divine Dragon, on why she always appeared in human form. Divine Dragon refused to abide by the broken rules of the Immortal Palace, and she questioned why they always appeared in their original form. She warned that they would end up like the crane, who had a human body and a bird's head. The crane was surprised when Divine Dragon asked if it was offended. The crane clarified it was because she was bleeding. The crane had thought it was a joke, because the last time she bled was over a century ago. She truly believed herself invincible, but to her shock, blood gushed out. The crane panicked as the blood gushed harder. She immediately cast a homeostasis spell. Then, she abruptly left the crane, before she headed down to the mortal realm. The crane reminded her to report to the Immortal Palace. She flew incredibly fast. A mark appeared on her hand. Upon scanning it with her divine sense, she learned that it was a death curse, and she couldn't dispel it even with her powers. She was aware that the life curse was tied to someone in the human world, and she must find that bastard. Back in the alley, a rectangular barrier was put up. Marks were drawn on its walls, and it covered the whole alley. Jubai was impressed, as she took a direct hit from a quasi-condensation realm attack without flinching. At the very moment of impact, she developed a defensive barrier, leaving the surrounding buildings completely unscathed. He could tell that the person's cultivation was far above him. Divine Dragon stated that she hadn't fought low-level cultivators in so long, that she'd forgotten how weak they all were. She also considered that Jubai was weaker than when she first started. Jubai yelled at his guy to quickly get away from her, but before the bald guy could do anything, his body was blown into pieces. Jubai was horrified. His legs gave in, which made him fall onto his butt. He asked how it happened. He hadn't even seen her attack. He panicked as he saw her closing in, especially since his legs had already given out. He knew he was doomed when suddenly he was lifted high into the air. She commented that she was surprised to see someone she'd eaten come back to life. With that statement, he confirmed it was indeed the dragon. She told him to hurry up and lift the curse from her, or he'd be dead meat. He replied that he had no idea how to lift it. Because of his response, he was slammed repeatedly to the ground. She had done it with such powerful force that it shattered the very ground. She demanded he lift it. Jubai watched, terrified by how scary she was, realizing when she snapped, she even targeted her own allies. Suddenly, she coughed up blood. It tainted the ground beneath her. She realized the harder she beat him, the more hurt she got. So, it wasn't totally worth it. If this kept up, they'd fall into a boring loop. She decided to head back. First, to find a way to lift the curse. But he told her to stop. She noticed how he'd come back to life again. Internally, she complained about how shameless this curse was. He brought up how she'd eaten him like he was nothing, so he wanted a bit of compensation. He was the first one to ever say that to her. She asked what he wanted. He replied that he wanted to become immortal. She got intensely annoyed at him. Then she asked what he would do if she refused. He threatened her that if she didn't grant it, he'd soak himself in a pool of sulfuric acid and die over and over, and she'd bleed like crazy with him. She got furious that he dared to blackmail her. She thought of just freezing him and locking him away, while she took her time to find a way to break the curse. After all, she had all the time in the world. But he had countermeasures for that exact situation. He taunted her to try it, which only angered her further. A shadow formed beneath her and released menacing red flames. Because of that, she threw him the book, while telling him that reaching immortality in one step was utterly impossible. Turns out, the book was just a basic cultivation manual, meant to help him slowly cultivate his power. She snidely remarked it was perfect for someone utterly talentless. Like him, while it couldn't guarantee immortality, it could at least secure him a spot at a decent university, meaning he'd never worry about food or clothes again. On the cover, it proclaimed, "Advance payment of skills." From that title alone, He instantly knew it had to be an amazing technique. He readily agreed that improving his cultivation was truly the only path forward. She scoffed in her mind, calling him an idiot. Nothing in this world ever comes for free. So until she got rid of him for good, she drained every last bit of him. Funnily enough, he was thinking the exact same thing. Jabai, meanwhile, was plastered flat against the wall, desperately trying to hide his very existence. But he saw her gaze land right on him. He knew his end was nigh, but she declared she couldn't be bothered to stomp on ants that weren't blocking her path. But he'd better forget everything that just happened here. He'd just seen her use her formidable powers, which made him scream, "I don't want to die." Suddenly, he opened his eyes to find the body cultivation instructor was yelling at him to control himself, right there in the exam room. He was annoyed he couldn't recall anything from yesterday. His mind was a total mess. He didn't even know what was happening that day. The instructor then announced this was their first monthly exam of the new semester, urging them to do their best. Students at the bottom of the rankings were in deep trouble because the school would advise them to leave. The first body cultivation proficiency test was underway, so for the sake of their futures, he told them to charge. Hey, wait, I didn't expect that. This would be the first week's monthly exam. Already, when the instructors haven't taught us a thing in class for the past few days, the green-haired guy next to him explained that's how senior year worked. Everything worth teaching was covered in the first 2 years, and they should have been taking extra prep classes. Little did he know, the green-haired guy explained that all their efforts should be funneled into extracurriculars. Their senior year was all about intense exams, climbing the rankings, and hyping themselves up. Then it hit him, hey, he hadn't signed up for a single prep class. He was totally screwed for the exams. He then informed the stocky student that his rank was about to drastically change. The bewildered student asked why. That's when the green-haired guy gleefully relayed the news that the clueless transfer student hadn't even bothered to register for cram school. They erupted into raucous laughter. The green-haired guy then spotted Jabai, and a question formed in his mind. How the vicious class bully had let go of Hay. Even Jabai was wondering the exact same thing. His 2 henchmen had been beaten to death, and the other one had bled out. He couldn't shake the feeling that something utterly terrifying had happened. The first test was called penetration. A barrier spell had been cast over the field, allowing them to test their destructive penetration. The instructor called Jabai forward to demonstrate the technique. The instructor clearly had high hopes for Jabai. Jabai threw the stick, unleashing a devastatingly destructive attack. It tore through several layers. The instructor was ecstatic to announce that it had penetrated a 1-meter thick, 5-layer reinforced concrete wall. He had, of course, expected nothing less from the school's body-tempering prodigy. Jabai's level was almost on par with his own. The girls in the crowd cheered wildly for him. He paid them no mind, as they had no idea what truly worried him. The green-haired guy then remarked how impressive it was. Hay then asked if the result was considered good. The green-haired guy shared that Jabai was widely known, as he was the only person in their class to be directly recommended to Hazu Cultivation University, based solely on his body cultivation. He explained that the test reflects his explosive, destructive power, whether using body tempering or sway cultivation techniques. Ultimately, the score was determined by how many layers he managed to penetrate. Most people can only punch through 2 or 3 layers in their first month of senior year. A 5-layer result was by far the leading score. The instructor called Wu Fei next. That's the fatty from earlier. He took a step and launched the ball. It reached the first layer, but got completely stuck there. He desperately wished for it to break through, and it did. He cheered, celebrating his passing of the test. Then, the instructor called the transfer student. Deep down, he wasn't happy that the old principal admitted such trash into their class. He was ready to call out, hey. The green-haired guy expected him to be doomed. If he couldn't break through even 1 layer, he'd be advised to leave. Since this is our last chat, he wished him luck. Hay concentrated his power, and his eyes turned red. The instructor saw him approaching empty-handed. He mocked him, announcing they now had a prodigy in class who could create from nothing. Everyone burst into laughter. Jibai seconded that, saying, with a hidden dragon like that, the teacher's senior position would be secured. This only heightened everyone's laughter. But to his surprise, Hei created a ball. Then, Hei got into position to throw it. He raised it and unleashed it. It shot fast, easily breaking through the walls. The instructor couldn't believe it. He actually penetrated the reinforced walls. He worried it would even pierce through the school's barrier. But the last wall, it vanished. He was relieved it had reached the end of its power. But even so, it had broken the record for their year's cohort, and it was his first time seeing that palm lightning. He could tell, with the explosive force behind that lightning, that Hei's grade and body tempering were high. To master both body and chi cultivation to that level, he called the kid a heavenly genius. The girls gathered around him, saying he looked ordinary before, but now he turned handsome. One of them claimed his talent rivaled. Unlike the previous geniuses, he'd shown no signs of it before, but now they could tell he was tied to a major sect. The green-haired guy knew he was doomed, especially since he'd laughed so loudly earlier. Later that day, he looked incredibly nervous. He asked what on earth had happened to him, because he looked 50 years older. The green-haired guy explained he'd been blinded earlier and told him that if he ever needed anything, he just had to say the word. He said goodbye, claiming he was in a hurry, and then he was gone in a flash. The green-haired guy was amazed at how he rushed back to the train. He realized outstanding people worked harder than him. So, he ran as fast as he could. He was so annoyed. He just confirmed that the stinking dragon had truly ill intentions. She'd slipped him a ticking time bomb, a crappy manual instructing him to make up for his lack of practice in the black. Nether palm lightning. If he didn't finish on time, penalties would apply, such as deductions to his cultivation, and a weakening of his bloodline, which would mean prohibitions. His timer read 11 hours, 5 minutes, and 56 seconds. Inside his room, he rummaged through his shelves, looking for a skill book. It was the one he bought online, but back then, he couldn't understand it, so he'd skip to the last few pages. He was dying to know the initial cultivation steps. Again, he couldn't order it again, because the fastest it would arrive was the next day, which would definitely be too late by then. Then he thought of just buying the ebook. He became too loud upon seeing how expensive it was. His neighbors downstairs complained about his yelling, because they had to sleep early for their cultivation. The first time he bought the book, he'd emptied his pockets, spending tens of thousands. To his surprise, the price had skyrocketed that much already. At this point, he only had 8. He was running out of time. And if he doesn't place that order pronto, even a whole night of training might not cut it. But he was already drowning in expenses. Like the 50,000 he shelled out for the old principal. He eventually bit the bullet and bought it for 200,000 won, slashing his account balance to 3,372.29 yuan. He then ventured into the mountains, where he practiced the basic breathing technique. With only 3 minutes left, he activated his spiritual energy. The final minute was dedicated to practicing his moves. He ignited a series of explosions in the forests, leaving craters and holes, blasted through trees and rocks alike. He finished his intense cultivation process with a mere 32 seconds to spare. Once done, he arrogantly claimed it was too easy. He never expected to suddenly get dizzy and pass out cold. Meanwhile, back on the floating island, specifically in the bathhouse, thick steam swirled through the area. The divine dragon was happily enjoying a shower when blood suddenly erupted from her back, staining the pristine bathwater. She lamented the loss of her immortal dew, which she had only just managed to produce. She scried through the water to check on him and discovered he'd overexerted himself during cultivation, during the completion process, and died suddenly. She scoffed, calling him utterly useless. She'd only imposed a slight restriction during the cultivation process, and it was already enough to wipe him out. She had no choice but to heal him then and there. 1 week ago, on the first day of senior year, Jibai ranked in the top 10 on the class placement test. The results were plastered on the bulletin board. He proudly boasted that he'd snatched a spot in the elite class's top 10, purely through body tempering alone. It made him scoff at the other top students. Then a girl beside him gasped loudly, which made him jump. She saw that Fatty wasn't at the bottom anymore. Instead, Hai was now holding up the bottom. They'd never heard of him before, which meant he had to be a transfer student. Jibai was itching to show this newbie just how tough things got around here. And now, back to the present. Jibei saw he had rocketed up 10 ranks, following the last individual test. Now sitting at rank 33, one of his lackeys called out to him, as it was almost time for the test to begin. They were in the gym, where a student stood trembling with fear. A palm strike slammed into his face, making him bleed. It was such a devastating blow that he collapsed, breaking his neck. The instructor immediately called for the medic, telling him to rush to the infirmary, because the kid might still be saved by Dr. Song's miracle hands. He asked the green-haired guy, "What kind of test was that?" The student explained it tests their palm strength and resistance to impact, and compared to last time's penetration test, this one was Jibai's specialty, especially his proud iron-tempered steel technique, which reportedly no one in their grade could ever break through. Jibai then faced the strongest palm strength student of that year, Zhao Yukai. He was eager to prove he was stronger. Yukai was determined to make him pay for his arrogance. He unleashed his forged steel palm. It was such a destructive attack. It enveloped them in dust. Then, he declared that iron-tempered steel was just overrated, but he was utterly surprised. As the dust subsided, he saw Jibei still standing. Jibei mocked his technique, then delivered his own hit. Yukai was down, so the instructor called for someone to bring him to the infirmary. Then he called a student named Wu, but Jibei suggested calling him first. He was surprised to hear about the open source cultivation method and patented cultivation method. His classmate told him that cultivation methods fall into those two types. It was common sense, so it made him wonder which school he'd attended. 4th, 10th to 11th grade. He replied that it was Municipal Number 3 High School. Now, it's no wonder he's lacking in foundational knowledge. It was a regular, non-immortal cultivation high school. This green-haired student explained to him that open source techniques for cultivation were publicly available, meaning anyone could learn and practice them. Patented cultivation methods, however, were registered with the Immortal Cultivation Patent Bureau, so only the patent holder or authorized individuals were permitted to practice them. Unauthorized users of such methods could face severe legal consequences or even be exterminated, just like those two we saw earlier. Forged steel palm was an open-source technique, while 100 refined steel was patented. But regular cultivators couldn't easily bypass the patent restrictions. Patented methods usually came with higher thresholds and were much more difficult to master. The instructor cast basic maintenance spells to repair the ruined training ground. Then, he called out for Hei to come down. Hei and Jibai stood face to face. Jibai's heart pounded every time he saw Hei. He couldn't understand why, especially since he'd only lost one individual test. But if he could defeat him, he could finally prove himself. Hei casually suggested they just hit each other at the same time. This immediately irked Jibai, so he yelled at Hei not to get too arrogant. Hei unleashed the forged steel palm. Jibai wasn't impressed, scoffing that Hei dared to clash an open-source method with him. So he countered with 100 refined steel. The instructor watched intently. Their palms landed squarely on each other's faces, but Jibai was immediately blown away, crashing into the wall. The impact left a deep dent and a body-shaped hole in the earth. The crowd was struck speechless, frozen in shock. The instructor hadn't expected this. Hei's opening move was the open source forged steel palm, but the moment it hit Jibai, it had been layered with 100 refined steel. Not only did the Zhang family's patented 100 refined steel have a high cultivation threshold and proven difficulty, it also made him wonder if Hei didn't fear the catastrophe from privately practicing a patented method. Hei then suggested to the teacher to send Jibai to the infirmary because he seemed quite stuck on the wall and he couldn't get down by himself. He was puzzled when the teacher remained silent. But then, as he turned around, the teacher was acting like a tame pup. Just then, this teacher then asked him which master he trained under. He told the teacher to lean in closer. Then he whispered that it was the Dragon Lord himself. Jibai suddenly woke up in the infirmary. He was absolutely furious at that scumbag. Then, a voice spoke up right beside him, remarking that the bastard looked incredibly familiar. It was none other than Ji Xian. He took a much closer look at Hei's picture, stating that he bore a striking resemblance to someone he knew. Jibai then questioned if he truly knew him. Ji Qian subtly hinted that he did, but internally, he reasoned with himself, thinking there was no way Hei could have survived. It made him wonder if the Dragon Lord had shown any mercy. He knew their next exam would be in chemistry. He asked Jibai which specific topic they would focus on. Jibai responded that it would be poison making and toxin testing, with a truly devilish grin spreading across his face. Ji Qian told him they were going to have so much fun at a car junkyard. Jibai diligently practiced his forged steel palm training, bringing it to its absolute completion. He then informed the boss that all the scrap cars had been completely crushed. After that, the boss praised him for his excellent work and swiftly transferred the payment to his account. That boss hadn't bought a scrap car crusher just to save money, so Jibai had the perfect opportunity to earn while cultivating. The system then instructed him to complete his 100 refined steel training. Soon, he'd landed 20 strikes, yet he still hadn't received 20 hits. He started desperately thinking who he could fight that night just to receive those hits. Out of the blue, someone suddenly appeared and asked if he was Hei. He immediately replied that he was not. He quickly justified that the man had the wrong person, because his name was actually Yinjian. At that very moment, the teacher from class earlier suddenly sneezed. He found it incredibly strange to catch a cold when he was just making a slideshow. The man then yelled at him to stop pretending, because he already knew him. Young Master Zhang had sent him to teach a lesson. This individual was Zhang Zixuan, a Tier 9 Spiritual Attraction Realm Master. He approached him and declared that, "You should have just said so earlier." He denied it, thinking he was just a debt collector. He was absolutely up for the challenge. Zixuan found him strange for not fearing him, especially since his cultivation was far superior. With his spiritual perception, he was at most just entering the spiritual attraction realm. This made him wonder if he was hiding his true cultivation. Without a second thought, he punched him, sending him flying across the room. He charged again, thinking the other guy was just acting earlier, and that it only took one punch. But just as he was about to land on him, he was caught off guard. The other stared at him and dared him to put more power into his attack. The forest erupted as they fought. He was hit again, followed by a powerful kick, even landing face down on the ground. He still wore a smile, confusing Zixuan. He was getting pummeled, his aura visibly weakening, but that creepy expression remained on his face. Eventually, he decided to end the fight with an instant kill attack. Third sequence. He received a powerful blow to his torso, which sent him flying until he crashed into a boulder. He fell to his knees. Zixuan scoffed. High schoolers these days are so weak, and yet they still pretend to be tough. The other hadn't moved, and when he checked, he was already being healed. He was surprised by the insane recovery speed. Not even a top-tier spiritual attraction realm physician could manage something like that. He hit him with a final decisive strike. The impact sent a powerful gust of wind around them. The other wore a creepy grin. Even after taking such a brutal beating, he had already received 20 beatings. This concluded the 100 refined steel training. He looked down and grabbed Zixuan's leg. He then unleashed the devastating black underworld palm thunder, striking him squarely in the torso. But Zixuan swiftly blocked it with his open palm, scoffing at what he called an entry-level spell. He just smirked, telling him to hold on tight, as he prepared his other hand for the next assault. He then executed the forged steel palm, immediately followed by the 100 refined steel. Zixuan took a direct hit, the impact sending him soaring. The force was absolutely immense, sending him straight through a tree trunk. He eventually regained his footing, steadying himself, but a stream of blood escaped his lips. He could tell that most of the meridians in his body had been completely shattered. He couldn't believe a mere high schooler, at the entry level of the spiritual attraction realm, could force him to channel energy just to heal. He vowed to beat Hei to death once he recovered. But then something else caught his eye. The lightning ball was still stuck to his hand. He panicked, frantically trying to shake it off, but it simply wouldn't budge. Powerless, he could only watch as it exploded. Nothing remained of him but his stylish shades. He casually picked them up and put them on. The system then chimed in, notifying him that the enemy had been defeated and that he'd obtained a magical tool, the dynamic monocle. This monocle enhances dynamic vision, making it easier to track even the fastest moving objects. Hay was absolutely thrilled with this unexpected reward. The next day, the much-anticipated rankings were posted. Jibai was seriously bothered by Hay's incredibly fast rise in rank. He was already sitting at a shocking 18th place. On top of that, the kid had also taken out the thugs Jibai sent after him. A woman called out to Hay, asking him for his secret to ranking up so quickly. She even offered to exchange it for some yuan nourishing pills. Little did they know, some other girls were eavesdropping. They called her Gao Fei, a total trickster for her plan to scam him with a losing trade. Later on, class finally began. It was chemistry class, taught by the formidable teacher Zhang Xingyan. And for today's lesson, they were tasked with demonstrating their poison making and poison detection skills. In the future, as they entered dangerous careers, they would inevitably face treachery from their own colleagues, from your subordinates to your bosses and even your rivals. So if they don't want to suddenly drop dead on the job, she advised them to give their all on the upcoming exam. Each of them will be given several samples. Before the exam ended, they had to identify which one was poisonous. They then had to swallow the non-toxic ones. Their final grade would be based on both detection, speed, and accuracy. If they could even name the poison, they would earn extra credit. Jibai had tampered with Hay's entire testing tray with the help of his second brother. He expected Hay not to even reach this dangerous career because he would surely die there. With so many strong-smelling items mixed together, he knew that Hay wouldn't be able to identify the poison by scent. In the tray, there were hutunia dumplings, stinky tofu, durian, and fermented bean juice. If he was thinking of identifying the poison, by other means, he wouldn't be successful either, because the poison had been heavily disguised. He believed in their family's poison master, and he was confident that not even the chemistry teacher would be able to detect it. The green-haired guy was relieved to be in a field where he clearly had the advantage. He immediately started sniffing, while Fatty dropped a chemical on the food. Another girl used lightning to detect the poison. Teacher Qingyan watched her and was thoroughly impressed. She was still excellent at poison detection. She walked over to Hay when she saw that he was doing absolutely nothing, while everyone else had started demonstrating their skills. Jibai overheard it, and he thought there was nothing for Hay to do but sit there, clueless about which to pick. And it wouldn't even matter what he ate, because he would die anyway. Hay then reached out for the food. Meanwhile, at a floating island, the divine dragon was fishing, but she was also lost in her own thoughts. Ever since she became a god, things had gotten incredibly boring. She had been left with nothing to do but fish, while she was just lounging around. Blood began to pour from her eyes and nose. Just 5 minutes earlier, he devoured all the food on his tray. Teacher Qingyan was utterly stunned by his actions. She questioned if he truly understood what he was doing. That could actually kill him. She was relieved to have anticipated fools like him and had strictly controlled the dosage. She assured him that it wasn't a lethal dose, but he should prepare for some severe diarrhea. Shirbai grinned, calling that mere wishful thinking. He had poisoned every single food item, and it was enough to kill someone 5 times over. He turned pale, and blood gushed from his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. Then he dropped dead. Teacher Qingyan quickly took his pulse and announced his death. One student instantly got worried that the school would make national headlines. The other student quickly retorted that it wouldn't happen, since he isn't from a major sect, nor is he a top scholar. Students dying in their senior year was quite common. The rank 19 student was secretly pleased, as he would easily climb the ranks now. Meanwhile, Teacher Qingyan was concerned about how this would affect her promotion evaluation. She was furious at whoever had dared to tamper with her exam. She immediately considered that damned teacher, as he had been competing with her for the title. While she suspected him, he had recovered. She shot to her feet. Upon learning that he was alive, Never in her entire career had she encountered anything like this. She couldn't believe he had fooled her. He reported that all 5 items were poisoned, including enteric dispersing powder. Some letters then appeared on his palm. Then he stated the last one was the air ending. Poison. Shirbai couldn't believe it. He grew nervous. He thought he'd been thorough, even finding an expert from the condensation realm, from their sect. He'd even had him investigated and found nothing. So it was a huge puzzle. How can Nameless, nobody, survive the poison of condensation realm experts? Later that day in the lab, Teacher Ching Yin meticulously inspected a petri dish. She enveloped the fluid with her spiritual aura. It was Hei's blood sample, and from her analysis, every single one of his answers was correct. She knew the brain-dead PE teacher couldn't possibly have concocted that. This led her to believe it was the work of a true poison master in the condensation realm. She even needed half the night to analyze it herself, which made her realize he was an absolute freak. Meanwhile, inside the new Immortal bookstore, Hei was searching through the books. As he'd never imagined, such a unique communication method existed. Divine Dragon communicated with him through his palms and revealed it was his bloodlines. Forbidden technique. She called him dumb for not even knowing how to use it. She linked their health bars to use it, to contact each other during emergencies. Hei complained that encrypted communication like that really hurt. He asked if there was another way for immortals to talk to mortals. It seemed like he thought gods had absolute freedom. She pointed out that to humans, they were akin to strategic nukes. Every single move was under constant surveillance by the immortal palace. She'd already descended once on her own. So if she casually made contact with humans again, and the immortal palace found out, some immortals would definitely come after her. Hei then asked if she could reveal to him the location of all the top-tier treasures were, but all she's allowed to share with him was already infused into the advance payment skills. So he just has to follow the instructions. Suddenly, his hand started bleeding. Someone saw it. It was a female staff member. She figured that. High schoolers were under immense pressure these days, but she couldn't believe one would harm themselves in a bookstore, and she'd be the one cleaning up the blood again. Hei apologized and promised to clean the blood later. Then he brought up some questions about a few books. She asked him what kind of books. He shared that he's in his senior year. He's determined to reach the condensation realm. He asked for recommendations on the best prep books, with nearly a year still to go before the college entrance exams. She seemed a bit surprised he was already preparing for the condensation realm. He asked if reaching the condensation realm was difficult. She doubted he was truly a senior, given his lack of basic knowledge. She then explained that if he could break through to the condensation realm during the college entrance exams, he'd be practically guaranteed acceptance. And if he reached it right away, he could even apply for direct recommendation. She then mused how kids these days have high ambitions, but no grounding. She gave him 3 best-selling books and said if he could grasp them, it would be great. He chose the Condensation Realm Cultivation Guide. He brought it to the counter. Since it wasn't one of her recommendations, she was unimpressed he hadn't listened. He immediately scanned through the book. The staff watched as he simply flipped to the last page of that complex book. In her head, she judged his logic to be completely backwards, and thus he was hopeless. He read that breaking into the condensation realm requires full cultivation of either chi or body to level 10 plus, and the help of a condensation pill. The process, however, may cause spiritual energy to rampage through his body, leading to serious injuries. Therefore, he needed plenty of top-grade healing and foundation, stabilizing medicines. It was expensive and risky, and he could even die in the process. He concluded that he just needed to prepare a condensation pill. Meanwhile, at the Zhang estate, someone was yelling. Jabai scolded the condensation realm poison master for failing to kill a mere senior student. The man apologized, explaining that something must have gone wrong. He begged for a second chance and promised that the kid would die this time. Talk about intense. Jabai was getting seriously worried. Now that Hei's score officially ranks 10th in class, he absolutely couldn't stand seeing that thorn in his side succeed. Not without a fight, that's for sure. So he gave the man one more week. If he wasn't dead by then, he would personally take his head. Suddenly, a loud crash from the roof grabbed his attention. And just like that, Hei burst through, sword in hand. Let's rewind a few moments before this epic confrontation. The Zhang residence, as expected, had extremely tight security. One of the many guards, positioned on the second floor, witnessed his colleague suddenly drop dead. He frantically grabbed his radio to alert everyone that an intruder had breached the defenses. But before he could even finish his sentence, he was swiftly struck down. Then Hei vaulted onto the second-floor balcony, taking out the guards on the roof with brutal efficiency. That's when he overheard Jabai's chilling death threat. He channeled his formidable power into his hand, then blasted a hole clean through 2 floors below him. And as he landed exactly where Jabai stood, he immediately drew his sword and plunged it into Jabai's shoulder. This arrogant bully had absolutely no clue he was messing with the absolute wrong person. Just imagine picking a fight with a new student, and then, out of nowhere, the next thing you know, you've nearly lost your life. He'd been inches away from a fatal blow to the heart. But despite that, he still attempted to retaliate. Jabai unleashed his formidable palm technique to shove Hei back. In response to the attack, Hei yanked out his sword, blocking the palm strike with his own blade. The counterforce sent Jabai flying through several walls. He only stopped after making a massive dent in the final wall. But then a volley of needles was suddenly launched at Hei. He skillfully deflected every single one with his sword, though he was slightly thrown off balance. When another man lunged at him with a truly unique weapon, it was a staff with a peculiar metallic end, one that eerily closed and opened like a predatory flower. He managed to block the strike using his trusty sword, but the assailant quickly pressed a hidden button on the weapon, and a concealed blade instantly shot out, aimed directly at his eye. Hei swiftly dodged sideways, so it only grazed his skin. The attacker was forced to quickly step back. This particular man instantly recognized the intruder as none other than the high school student, who'd gotten incredibly lucky to survive his deadly poison just as he was about to seek out Jabai. But then Jabai came to him instead. Jabai then gloated, revealing the venom needle he'd released earlier was certainly no trivial matter. He'd crafted it using his ancestral recipe, making its toxicity on a whole other level. It meant sudden death for this brat. Hai's cheek bled, yet he simply glared back. This gave the poison master an unsettling feeling. Then Hai vanished in a flash. He lunged at Jabai, his sword aimed squarely. He tried to stab him, but Jabai narrowly evaded. Hai swung his sword, but then he sensed something. Several needles came flying straight for him. They were from the poison master. He was offended that Hai had just ignored him. He was also furious, because with the potency of his poison, Hai should have already dropped dead. And yet this kid was still standing. Hai broke an item. Then the poison master yelled for Jabai to run. He promised to cover Jabai with a curtain of needles. Hai watched as Jabai made his escape, leaping through the window. Jabai successfully made it out. With Jabai gone, the poison master decided to demonstrate the power of his condensation realm. The needles that had punctured the wall released a potent green mist, making Hai start coughing. He could tell this poison fog was far more intense than the previous toxic latent needles. The poison started manifesting on his skin, and he dropped dead. The poison master roared with laughter. He mocked Hai for thinking he was immune to every poison, when it turned out he couldn't withstand his ultimate finishing move. To his absolute surprise, a nearby statue was suddenly sliced in half. Then Hai's eyes snapped open. He grabbed his sword and slashed at the poison master. At this point, the poison master knew he'd seriously messed up. Apparently, ever since the divine dragon used a clay avatar technique to divert damage, she no longer gets covered in blood every time something goes wrong. But 2 had been destroyed right off the bat. This signaled to her that Hai had run into something tricky. She decided to check out what was happening. She witnessed him mercilessly slashing someone. The poison master couldn't fathom how a realm cultivator like him could be taken down by someone from the spiritual attraction realm. He bled too profusely, and when they checked, he already had no pulse. So, they looted him as the items, though useless, could still be converted to cash. Meanwhile, Zabai was stranded on a mountain road, panting like a madman. He was utterly breathless from his escape. He'd even forgotten his phone, so he had to flag down a car and borrow one to call for backup. He was absolutely furious with that transfer student. He couldn't believe he dared to exact revenge on the Zhang family. Once he gathered the family's assassins, he vowed to kill him and wipe out his entire family. To his utter shock, he appeared and asked him, "Who exactly are you going to kill?" He immediately attacked him with his sword, but Zabai deftly dodged. Then, Zabai used 100 refined steel to reinforce his body. He was cut on his arm, and it bled profusely. He stepped back, desperately trying to create distance between them. Before he could even steady his footing, an orb was hurled at his face, exploding instantly. This blast sent him tumbling down the cliffside. He hit the ground with a bone-jarring impact. He followed, intent on finishing him. Zabai couldn't move. Zabai tried to intimidate him by declaring, "I'm from the Zhang family." But he didn't care. He ruthlessly decapitated him. He admitted that if it weren't for the Dragon King absorbing all the damage, he would have killed him several times over. He couldn't believe that even at death's door, Zabai still resorted to that same family background intimidation routine. He burned the body, erasing all evidence. Even so, he expected the Jiang family to link the death to him, whether they had proof or not. And since he was still using the Jiang family's patented technique, he knew that future conflict wouldn't be avoided. But he was satisfied that his revenge hadn't been in vain. Even though he had rushed into it, he still managed to snatch up some valuable stuff. It was the condensation pills, and he obtained 3 of them. He knew that Jibai's brother had to offer sacrifices to the Dragon King just to get one. He learned how complicated the relationships among the disciples of the major sect. He also grabbed some gold, silver treasures, talismans, and standard issue blades, and such. He planned to sell them all later. The system detected the word sell and offered a sales system that they might like. Ever since he learned advanced payment skills, the system-like pop-ups started appearing. He assumed it was designed by the Stinky Dragon, and now it even became crazier with the e-commerce platform's big data and how it communicated to him. Then, he realized he had to delete his browsing history fast. A wheel showed up in front of him, and it had options like cultivation technique, magic artifact, etc. He clicked sell. The dynamic monocle horizontal blade, poison lotus gold bars, and all other junk were sold. His account has been credited with 1,054,178 won. Then the system lit up. The heaven opening blade was being sold for 1 million. Well, he wasn't happy that everything was sold for 1.05 million. And yet, he was asked 1 million for a single premium blade. He remembered similar quality artifacts outside. Going for way cheaper, he claimed that it was a robbery. That it's not that he couldn't afford it. It was just not worth it. He decided to check something else instead. There were pocket pants for 50,000 yuan. It was durable and tear-resistant pants. Both side pockets were spatial bags and can hold many items. He finds this one was pretty useful. He spent 100,000 yuan and was left with a remaining balance of 954,718 yuan. He checked out other items like boiling blood, a premium item that costs 600,000 yuan. With this, the more blood he loses, the stronger his attacks become. There's also a powerful item called the Swift Eye Contact Lens, costing 50,000 yuan. It boosts dynamic vision by 50%, making it easier to track even the swiftest objects. Another great find was the anti-impact shirt, priced at 100,000 yuan. This t-shirt was tougher than he was, ensuring his clothes wouldn't rip mid-battle. Then came the grip shoes, a whopping 200,000 yuan, featuring super traction soles. When activated with spiritual power, they could adhere to any surface. The actual adhesion strength depended on the user's cultivation. In total, he splurged 950,000 yuan, leaving him with a paltry 4,718 yuan. This made him weep while the divine dragon just smirked. She was dead set on not letting this brat die easily, especially after he dared cast such a blood curse on her. Someone then called for the Lord Dragon King. It was a cat, reporting they'd found a way to break the human's blood curse. She followed the cat towards the altar. The cat reported that this bloodline wasn't anything special. Hei's ancestors could only place blood curses on low realm demon beasts, and even those beasts couldn't withstand the transfer damage. So his ancestors often died quickly in low-level fights. That's why no one ever took an interest in his bloodline. He's always been a nobody in the mortal realm. She wondered how he managed to cast a blood curse on her when she was a celestial, the Dragon King. The cat speculated it was because when she descended to the mortal realm, the celestial emperor's restriction spell forcibly downgraded her cultivation to a very low realm. Plus, the boy's intense will to survive at that moment greatly increased the upper limit of his blood curse. However, his curse still depended on his own cultivation level. A cultivator of the spiritual attraction realm could only tap into a very small portion of her health bar. Once that sliver was gone, he'd die. The magic circle was nearly complete. The cat instructed her to step into the center of the formation. The magic circles had now formed above her, and then she cried out from immense pain as something ripped free from her body. Meanwhile, back on Earth, it was quiet. Hei was deep asleep, but that same line had entered Hei's body. She saw it then. The blood curse had taken a terrifyingly tangible form. She condensed, her power in her hand, ready to chop it off, but she was abruptly interrupted when a knock echoed from her door. It was a messenger, relaying that the celestial minister was inviting her. The cat looked confused. Why wasn't the message sent via talisman? Instead, a personal envoy had been sent. Divine Dragon instantly went on guard. Sensing this visitor held no good intentions, Divine Dragon stood before the throne, but it was utterly empty. Suddenly, a voice asked if she wished to sit there. A man appeared, standing to the right of the throne. He explained that the celestial emperor hadn't emerged in years, so the throne had remained empty for ages. There'd be no harm in her sitting there, just for a bit. She scoffed, pointing out how every immortal knew he was the most eager to claim that seat. She warned him not to play those kinds of mind games with her, then cut straight to business. Why had he called her here? He commented she was still as hot-tempered as ever. Then, he informed her the reason for his summons was her application for promotion to High Immortal. It had been rejected. This enraged her because back then, she'd given up her territory and subordinates and agreed to join the Immortal Palace. It was precisely because he had promised she would be promoted to High Immortal. After 100 years, he explained that things were different now, because tons of minor immortals were applying for promotion. So if they approved her, based solely on a promise made centuries ago, the other immortals would object. He suggested she accumulate more merit and boost her cultivation level a bit more. But she vanished before he could even finish his sentence. The cat was shocked she was back so soon. She was rocketing through the sky at immense speed, and her expression made it crystal clear just how furious she was. The cat knew that spelled trouble. She was practically at the cliff's edge when she landed. It triggered a massive explosion. The impact reverberated throughout the entire forest. The cat tumbled headfirst onto the rocks. It nervously asked if she was all right. She lay there sprawled on the rocks, sarcastically replying that she felt just fine, aside from feeling a bit restrained. The cat couldn't possibly believe she was restrained when she had just shattered an entire mountain. Her free reign was over. It was time for her to push that mule even harder. Meanwhile, deep within the human realm forest, Hei was training, much to the annoyance of a nearby bird, who just wanted to sleep. Eventually, the system notified him that the spirit attracting breathing technique had been completed. Now, his foundation for charging into the condensation realm was even more rock solid. With that done, after the advance payment to the condensation realm, All the elements should be in place, minus some essential follow-up cultivation. He activated his advanced cultivation. Condensation realm power surged through his body. The concentrated power shot straight up to the sky. Smoke and dust billowed, filling the entire area. Eventually, it cleared, and his eyes glowed crimson. With this condensation realm advancement prepaid, his body strength, mana, and max health points significantly increased, while his divine sense was greatly enhanced. His comprehension ability was also significantly boosted. He also unlocked condensation realm exclusive techniques, artifacts, and items. He was told to fulfill the conditions for the condensation realm, which were 1 condensation pill, 10 superior foundation stabilizing pills, 3 bottles of superior spiritual herb extract, and 10 layers of spirit attracting realm. He was surprised that was it, since he already had everything imaginable. Things were easier than he'd ever imagined. But then, he totally jinxed himself. Suddenly, a side quest popped up. It demanded he clear the secret realm, while simultaneously battling the hemorrhage curse. Plus, he had to do it within a time limit. After completing it, a whopping 30% of his cultivation and merit would be mercilessly deducted as interest for his early advancement to the condensation realm. Late repayment? That would just stack up with compound interest. He had absolutely no idea where this mysterious demon cave was. As if on cue, a red glow suddenly appeared. The magic circle was already forming beneath him. He panicked, realizing he wasn't prepared for this at all. The moment he fell, the 20-minute timer roared to life. He complained, thinking, how incredibly intense is this? Especially intense when he saw he was falling straight onto sharp spikes. He channeled all his energy into his hands and feet so he could desperately grip the wall. He initially slid, but miraculously managed to stop himself. Mere inches before his rear end met the sharp tip of a spike. That was terrifyingly close. He nearly lost his life right there. Even if his health bar was significantly thicker now, getting hurt still definitely hurt. Plus, he had no clue when that hemorrhage curse would finally hit. If he could help it, he'd absolutely prefer to avoid any injuries. Suddenly, a metal arm sprung out, hurtling towards him. Luckily, he spotted it and swiftly dropped down to evade. But the moment he did, another spike emerged. He countered instantly, slashing it clean in half. His speed, strength, and reflexes had all drastically improved. Although, he didn't possess the finest knife capable of slicing iron. But after channeling a bit of magic power, a stone arm, thicker than a man's waist, could be cleanly severed with one swing of his sword. These were the undeniable benefits of his improved basic cultivation. He then spotted yet another incoming attack. He had to swiftly move in sharp zigzag motions upwards, determined to escape this treacherous pit. But then a massive hand abruptly blocked his exit. He was ambushed, trapped between the front and the back. He unleashed his powerful black nether fist, followed by core thunder, utterly smashing everything in his path. After that brutal assault, his timer read 17 minutes, 36 seconds. Suddenly, a rock creature, shaped like a human, burst from the ground, and several more of them had already appeared. One looked like a towering rock. The other, a human-shaped warrior wielding a mighty hammer. He had little time to contend with them. With the ticking time limit closing in, he then began hemorrhaging severely. As he collapsed onto his knees, the rock soldier raised its hammer high. It swung, and the hammer connected with something solid. It was a hand, but not his own. One he conjured using an advanced summoning skill, his stone golem, with massive blood loss coursing through him. His boiling blood skill suddenly activated, dramatically boosting his attack power. He then cleaved the rock soldier in half with his dagger. The system then gave him a new instruction. To complete the stone golem's training, he had to control the golem, to unleash various attack techniques on enemies. His progress stood at 0 out of 5. He unleashed a massive golem hand to utterly defeat all those rock soldiers. It crushed one foe instantly, while others were pummeled by his golem fist. The golem hand then rose triumphantly into the air, Meanwhile, in a completely different setting, Zikian slapped a chained woman, jolting her awake. The woman groggily came back to her senses. She found herself before a creepy, ominous altar. She'd just been drinking a soda, so she had no idea how she woke up in a place like this. She demanded her manager, Zikian, tell her what happened. Zikian was annoyed because his ritual hadn't worked, even after taking the condensation pill, and the dragon still wouldn't respond to his offerings. Now, because of his failure, he decided to pray to another deity, in hopes of getting another condensation pill. The black-haired woman, his subordinate, panicked instantly. When she realized he was trying to sacrifice her, she stared in utter disbelief. She'd been paid a measly 3,000 won a month, doing the back-breaking work of a beast, and now she had to sacrifice her life too. She vehemently claimed that nowhere in her company contract stated anything about such a monstrous demand. Zikian, unmoved, clarified that his company had nothing to do with this, since she signed a contract with a labor dispatch agency. It was absolutely unbelievable. He pressed a knife to her throat, telling her the chatter was over. She frantically begged him not to kill her. Then an unexpected explosion. It was all thanks to a wooden stick wielded by Hay. Hay spotted the manager, who used to treat his employees like his own kids. He then gave him the middle finger. By this point, Hay had already finished his stone golem training phase. Jiqian's jaw dropped when he saw him. He just couldn't believe he'd found the place and bypassed the mechanical golems. Outside, Hay pointed out that he wasn't surprised Jiqian was still alive. He guessed someone had already informed him just how hard he was to kill. He suggested it was Jiqian's dead brother who said that. Jiqian couldn't believe his brother had been killed by him. Then he asked if Hay had his brother's condensation pill. He attacked, demanding Hay hand it over. He wasn't even curious how his brother died. He'd only helped him kill Hay before, because he was saving face, as well as his life. But now that he's dead, as the elder brother, he claimed rights to his belongings. He was caught completely off guard when he saw Hay's devastating palm technique. It blew his right arm to pieces. The black-haired woman looked away, and Ji Kyung's body slid towards the altar's entrance. His blood spilled, and the creature on the other side of the altar sensed it, awakening the creature. I could feel the sinister aura. At this critical moment, only 9 minutes and 20 seconds remained. He quickly cut the woman's chains. The woman recognized him. She knew he'd vanished without a trace after the company. She never expected him to be this powerful. He replied that he had no time to explain, and ordered the golem to escort her out first. She was too stunned to speak, when the golem's massive hand grabbed her. Meanwhile, back in the darkness, Zikian's body was rapidly being consumed by the creature, deep within the sinister altar. Then its eyes snapped open. It grabbed a sword and dramatically stepped out. Just one glance at her ominous, red glowing form was enough to tell he wasn't facing an ordinary being. He saw her. His eyes immediately tried to gauge her immense power, but her strength was utterly overwhelming. Her mere presence alone made him start to bleed. He attempted to use his divine senses to assess her cultivation level, but was struck by a powerful countermeasure instead. The exit she emerged from had already sealed shut. It made him wonder what kind of terrifying entity Zikian had accidentally sacrificed himself to, and without uttering a single word, she charged directly at him. He blocked her sword with his dagger, but her sheer power forced him to his knees, and the blade grazed his shoulder. She was about to land a powerful kick, but he managed to block it with his other arm. Then, an explosion erupted. He was violently thrown against the cave wall. She immediately got into her combat stance. He noticed how incredibly heavy and forceful her strikes were. He planned to use the golem to assist him when she charged again, but before he could even react, he was already slashed. Meanwhile, on the floating island, 3 clay statues had mysteriously shattered. The divine dragon seemed deeply bothered that all its death. Substitute puppets had suddenly exploded. All at once, she could tell it was a grim sign of her own demise. And back to the fight. He was confused, not even seeing the sword swing, yet he had already been struck. He felt his stomach. The woman closed her eyes, as a swirling magic gathered around her finger. Then, she was about to strike him once more, directly targeting his neck, but he managed to block it with his dagger. The impact was incredibly powerful, unleashing a fierce gust of air around them. He realized she intended to finish him off. With a brutal follow-up strike, he signaled with his finger, and a massive golem hand materialized, attempting to smash her. But she expertly evaded it with a swift somersault, then skillfully created distance between them. She was caught a little off guard. When he followed up immediately with a swift dagger attack, the system flashed a notification. He'd taken 99% damage. Plus, his boiling blood skill had just activated. He was absolutely thrilled. He could finally duel properly now. He also realized that her devastating move, the one that one-shot him earlier, actually had a sequence. No wonder he couldn't defend against it before. He kept up a relentless assault with his dagger, which she expertly parried with her sword. Then he hurled an orb, instantly grabbing her attention. The moment it struck her sword, it exploded. This forced her to unleash her one-shot move once more. But he saw it coming. In fact, he was practically waiting for it. The system promptly informed him that the enemy's ultimate skill had been prepaid. She unleashed celestial annihilation. Both of them unleashed waves of destructive energy, and their clash ignited yet another massive explosion. When the dust finally settled, it shockingly revealed that both were still standing. But mere seconds later, the woman collapsed. He, however, was perfectly fine. She was utterly baffled, unable to comprehend what happened, especially since she launched her attack first. It should have connected, but he was completely unharmed. He playfully mocked her for being so flustered that she was speaking normally. All this time, he'd assumed she was mute. He retorted that while she could strike preemptively, he could do the exact same thing. Initially, he wanted to prepare a solid defense against the final impact of her attack, but he simply couldn't. It seemed to demand a significantly higher cultivation level than he possessed. Then, he recalled that the last time they clashed, she hadn't finished him off, but instead tried to slice his neck as a follow-up. He anticipated that next time, she'd definitely go for his head, so he prepared specifically for that very moment. And as a bonus, he even managed to steal a slash of his own. This sent her into a furious rage, but something else suddenly distracted her. A complex magic circle then materialized. He was warned, complete the hand signs quickly for his prepaid technique, or face divine retribution. This was his first time witnessing the divine punishment one must endure when utilizing prepaid heavens. Law techniques. Both of them formed a hand gesture. The woman panicked as her spell signs refused to align. Suddenly, a hand burst from the ground, seizing her arms. She wouldn't let that stop her from completing her critical spell cast. But he didn't need to prevent her from finishing the spell. He just needed to waste her precious time. She broke free and desperately continued her signs, but it was already too late for her. Several massive magic circles descended from above. It was a tribulation, devastating a vast area. Luckily, he remained completely safe. The system notified him his quasi-condensation realm prepayment had been successfully completed. It had deducted the exact required share of cultivation and virtue from a session. His cultivation level has soared to the third layer of the condensation realm. New system resources were then unlocked for prepayment. The woman slowly crawled out of the deep pit. He immediately blocked her path and commented, "You're still breathing." She calmly admitted, "I lost. Kill me, skin me, do whatever you want." That attitude made her strikingly different from others who begged for mercy before their demise. She was, surprisingly, incredibly calm. He was about to strike her down with his dagger. She closed her eyes, bracing herself for the final attack. But to her utter surprise, nothing happened. All her grievous wounds were miraculously healed. Then Hay revealed they now shared a single health bar. He invited her to ascend the realms together. A blood curse was inscribed on the woman, Long-een. Any damage she takes in combat will now be instantly transferred to the Dragon King. Meanwhile, in the bath, the cat was sleeping peacefully. Suddenly, the bathtub water started bubbling intensely, and the divine dragon abruptly stood up. The cat was startled by her sudden, erratic action. So it woke up meowing, "What just happened?" The divine dragon felt a deeply unsettling presence, as if another vampire's influence was upon her. The system then notified Hay that his advance payment skill had been upgraded. He could now make advance payments for powerful magical artifacts and rare elixirs. However, the item's level couldn't exceed his current major realm. The next day at school, Longin appeared, wearing rather skimpy clothing. Hay immediately turned to face her. The big guy and the green-haired student watched her. The big guy was curious about who she was. Meanwhile, the green-haired guy teased him for liking his sister-in-law. He instantly turned pale. He clarified that his heart only had eyes for teacher Jew. He asked the woman if they knew each other. She pointed out that they had just battled a few days ago. She even reminded him they were on the same health bar. He finally recognized her. She had changed her hairstyle. That's why he couldn't recognize her at first. Then he asked her how she managed the enrollment procedures and transferred into their class. She sat beside him and replied, "That one fresh trick works every time." 2 days ago, the principal received gold bars to admit a new transfer student. And now, back in the present, homeroom teacher Tao announced that the small-scale tests were over, and it was time for the mock exams. For most of them there, this would be their very first real combat experience. They have all studied hard for dozens of years, so it was time for them to show the true results of their cultivation. He called all the students to assemble in the examination area at first. Grade 12 Class 1 was told to assemble. Then Class 2 began their roll call. Class 3 was all present, and Class 4 was called next. Ian found the exam quite interesting. Their green-haired classmate was worried they would embarrass themselves in front of the whole grade. He assured him that it was going to be fine. This made him perk up, but to his disappointment, he explained that he was shameless, so he didn't care about being embarrassed. The teacher announced the examination rules. Each class has its own exclusive examination area. The edges of the area have been sealed with barriers, ensuring that candidates taking the same exam will not interfere with one another. Each candidate will fight the same monster. Those who achieve a KO within 5 minutes will receive a full score. Those who fail to get a KO by the end of your exam scores will be based on the effective damage you deal. If an emergency occurs during the exam, Teacher Joe, in the center of the field, will intervene. The exam had officially begun. Students whose names are called will step forward and prepare. First up, from Grade 12 Class 1, Zhao Jiakong and Guo Fan Liang. And from Class 2, Tang Long, as well as Class 4's, Rugasaki Hanako. "Hey, why are there sect members here?" The green-haired student replies, "It's because this is a mission from the Cultivation Education Bureau. As part of the top-tier sect peace treaty, almost every high school has to accept a few exchange students from the sect." He thought, "I thought only regular high schools had exchange students. I didn't expect cultivation high schools to do that too." A long black-haired girl senses something. This girl was Rugasaki Hanako, and she glanced at the audience. Her intuition is super sharp. Ian was annoyed. "She glared at my master?" She claims, "I'm the only one who gets to glare at my little bro." The green-haired guy comments that the hierarchy between them is something else. He was speechless. They've begun, and the exam monster is summoned. A large, creepy portal appears at the center. An eye appears. Then it reveals this mushroom man creature. Teacher John felt the ominous aura. He was nervous, because it was the Cloud Canopy Demon Lord that was suppressed by the Taizhong sect. He told Teacher Tao, using it for the first mock exam is too much. Teacher Tao called him impatient and mocked him. "No wonder you're still a PE teacher." Teacher Tao explained that if it had been the original body, even after being suppressed, all of them would have died already. But the exam monsters were all clones, grown from the spores of that demon lord. Although they were also at the condensation realm, their strength paled in comparison to the proctoring teachers. Plus, the entire site was fortified with suppression stones, so they had absolutely nothing to worry about. Then, a student unleashed a volley of fire talismans, which forced the monster to jump backwards. The teacher then announced that If they failed to inflict any damage on the exam monster before the exam ended, it would result in a crushing score of 0. The student who unleashed the fire talisman could only sob in despair. Another student hurled a barrage of rocks at the exam monster, but was punched hard by the monster instead. The student had managed to damage the monster, but the monster threw him clear outside the examination area, which meant he failed. Next, they announced the results for other students, like Zhang Shuiwen with 61 points. Wu Liwan failed, and Chun Jianglin scored 68 points. The bystanders watching couldn't believe how brutally difficult the first mock exam for the year truly was. Not a single person had scored over 70, and only a handful had even passed. They wondered which teacher designed this brutal exam. They planned to find out later, for sure. The green-haired student felt a wave of relief. He had nothing to be embarrassed about now, since everyone else was already embarrassed. Just then, he noticed something peculiar. Teacher John expressed his concern that Teacher Tao had definitely gone too far. Making the first mock exam this incredibly difficult could utterly destroy the student's confidence. Teacher Tao, however, reasoned that if they couldn't even withstand a mock exam of that level of difficulty, then it would truly be the worst class he'd ever taught. Then he noticed something peculiar happening in the arena. Hanako was actively running away from the monster. He certainly didn't expect that. She was heading straight for the edge of the barrier. He couldn't believe she was actually forfeiting the exam. But just before she crossed the barrier, she jumped. She was about to cross the barrier, but she did not. Instead, she used it to steady herself and gain more momentum as she prepared for her shocking attack. The monster was about to land a devastating punch on her when she unsheathed her sword, and, in an instant, she effortlessly shredded the monster. Teacher Guillaume was stunned by the absolute knockout. She walked away with a perfect score. The crowd watched in awe. Most had barely scraped by, yet she aced it with flying colors. Whispers immediately branded her a monster, and everyone wondered where she even came from. One person finally replied, "She's the exchange student from the Ing sect, the #1 student of class 4. A samurai observed her, a smirk playing on his lips. He knew this was merely the prelude, so he set up an extra exam for everyone. But wait, massive mushrooms were sprouting from cracks in the arena floor, and they were linked to something far more terrifying below. The next group of examinees was called forth, and the first one up was none other than grade 12. Class 1's very own Li Junhao. You know, the one with the green hair. Everyone expected him to ace it as well. After all, he's the top student in class 1. He noticed the protagonist subtly moving his hand, so he asked what the gesture meant. Our hero knew he couldn't see the system's prize wheel, so he just replied, just waving off a few mosquitoes. He couldn't care less about who was #1. His only concern was what valuable magical artifacts he could snag with an advance payment. Meanwhile, the fangirls were going wild for Junhao. Junhao was totally confident he'd obliterate the exam monsters. He burned to prove that there was no disparity in power, even between two top-ranked students. A sinister black mist materialized in the arena. The mushroom monster was spewing this eerie mist, and Teacher Tao had no clue who dreamed up such a twisted monster. Junhao was still utterly confident that, even if it morphed its shape, he'd still instantly kill it. Several characters lit up on his fist the moment he clenched it. He then slammed his fist into the monster, sending it soaring backward. Teacher John was shocked by the sheer force of his power. Teacher Tao quickly explained that Junhao literally imprints a magic formation on his arm to drastically boost the destructive power of his punch. This kid harbored a lot of hope for a guaranteed spot at Peking University, Tsinghua University. But the teacher concealed his fury that this student wasn't in his class. The attack was so destructive, it made the ground cave in. He boasted that this punch guaranteed his admission, and that he had also proven there was a distinction between two #1s. But then he turned pale. Even the teachers grew deeply concerned. The monster stood right in front of him. He was shocked it was still standing. He found it strange, knowing his attack wasn't perfect, because he twisted his waist and set his shoulder, incorrectly affecting the power generation. He decided to just do it again. But Teacher John, in a panic, screamed at him to get away. He continued to punch, though. But before he could land his punch, he was instead punched in the gut and thrown away. He crashed into the wall with a powerful impact. Teacher John rushed to his aid and supported him to stand, but he also coughed up blood. He did his best to disperse the force, but he still suffered internal injuries. He knew this monster wasn't supposed to be here. He got on the phone to call for reinforcements. Since an off-the-charts monster had just appeared, the person on the other line asked what the difficulty of the current exam was. He requested the highest realm teachers available. The monster was running towards them. Someone restrained its feet. The proctor was offended that the monster acted like he didn't even exist. He also bound the monster's arms. Little did they know, however, that the monster, hidden underneath, had fully opened its eyes. The mushroom monster created spikes from its back, and they pierced right through the ground. The proctor continued to hold the strings that bound it, but something underneath had shattered. The ground around him, he knew that wasn't good. The area he was in exploded. The monster broke free, but a fireball came raining down on it. It countered instantly by releasing something from its mushroom head, and it clashed with the fireball, unleashing another devastating explosion. The monster burst forth from the smoky aftermath, its gaze fixated on the figure atop the roof, the one continuously launching fiery projectiles. Hanako observed the unfolding chaos from the towering walls. With a swift motion, she unsheathed her swords. The samurai beside her questioned her actions. She declared her intention to descend and assist. Saizaki Kaku, from the Ryusaki sect, screamed at her. "Are you a complete fool?" he shrieked. He reminded her the exam was meticulously arranged to clear her path to success. As long as this outrageously powerful monster conveniently eliminated the top-ranking students in her grade, she'd secure guaranteed admission to prestigious Tsinghua, Peking, or even Shoshin University. Hanako, however, refused to stoop to such despicable tactics to obtain a coveted admission spot. She was determined to personally tear apart that vile monster. But suddenly, a strange sensation washed over her. Clutching her head, she screamed in agony. Kaku had placed a soul-binding curse upon her. He felt relieved to have finally reined her in. Otherwise, his father's painstakingly crafted plan would have gone completely to waste. Hanako inherited none of the cold-blooded and cruel virtues of the Ryusaki family. Not in her bones, not in her spirit. She still carried the fatal flaw of her original bloodline. She was gentle, kind, and inherently upright. It made him truly wonder why his father would even bother wasting resources on her. His thoughts were cut short. An explosion rocked the top of the building. Teacher Tao was violently hurled outwards. He quickly grasped that the monster was at least at the 5th layer of the condensation realm. Who in the world sanctioned this exam monster? He raged. He activated an astral shield protecting his body. The monster lunged, rushing straight for him. It moved with such blinding speed his eyes couldn't track it. He could only manifest an omnidirectional, defensive barrier around himself. The monster struck, cracking the shield, then utterly shattering it. It seized Teacher Tao by the throat. A monstrous, wide grin spread across its face. The teacher drooled uncontrollably, his eyes rolling back as the monster choked the life out of him. But someone dramatically intervened and utterly shredded the monster's arm. And of course, it was none other than our main man. 15 minutes earlier, the green-haired student trembled beside Hei after getting a good look at the monster. Hei could tell the guy was completely intimidated by its terrifying demonic aura. He didn't expect someone in the condensation realm to be so easily spooked by just the demonic aura alone. And this monster's cultivation level, it was at the 7th layer of the condensation realm. Ian was actually able to determine that. So he was seriously impressed by her sharp senses. But she clarified it wasn't her. It was her body. It sensed the powerful opponent and was getting totally agitated. It was what told her exactly what class of opponent that was. Hei activated his system wheel again. He set up a powerful barrier around the perimeter, making it impossible for that monster to escape. He also assumed that the monster planned to wipe them all out. Currently, Hei is in the third layer of the condensation realm, but factoring in his extended health bar, his actual strength was closer to the seventh layer. He checked the market for new weapons. After sifting through all the newly unlocked weapons, he found the only top-grade one available, and it was only available through advance payment. He also loved its unique attributes. Channeling mana through it can refine and absorb the attributes of other magical artifacts. The realm of the refined artifact cannot be higher than the weapon's current realm. He could also channel mana to make the weapon, absorb his techniques, and then release them. He acquired this cloud, Ruin Guide, through an advance payment. He placed it carefully beside his dagger. Then he informed Een that after he went down, she had to stay up there as a precaution. He had a feeling that the bonus monster would summon yet another bonus monster. Een agreed, though. She inquired if those teachers couldn't handle these monsters themselves. Hei immediately knew. She had a natural instinct for the strong ones, but not so much for the weaker ones. So he explained that those few teachers were all at the first layer of the condensation realm. Only the homeroom teacher, Tao, was at the fifth layer. If Tao had been able to prepare and set up a formation in advance, he'd barely manage. But in a sudden encounter, he was at a huge disadvantage. And that was exactly what he was good at. The weapon's refinement had been completed, and it had obtained the boiling blood attribute. Tao was already choking when Hei arrived to save him. Teacher Tao was utterly surprised to see his transfer student. He told him there was a barrier on the outer side of the wall, blocking the student's escape route. So he requested Hei to find a way to break it while he dealt with the monster. Tao was passionate about his role as a teacher and a role model for educators. He stepped back, determined to protect his students. The monster seemed to listen to him, while spores appeared on the side of its neck, and its arm had regenerated. He noticed how incredibly fast it healed. It looked brand new in a blink of an eye. He assumed this was a trait of fungus type monsters, but then the monster charged at him. He used his sword to block it. He noticed how its fist grew harder. Then it was about to punch him with its other hand. He quickly learned it was compressing the demonic aura on the surface of its fist to increase its hardness. It prepared for another punch. It was powerful enough to send Hei flying. Fortunately, he was able to stop himself from crashing into the wall. But in a blink of an eye, the monster was already right beside him. It raised its fist again, then punched him. The ensuing explosion made it hard for them to see. Teacher John was worried that the transfer student was going to die. Teacher Tao then suggested he go down and save him. He was left speechless. Teacher Tao knew that Teacher John had always held back from the sidelines, so Teacher John saving the number one student made him certain the student's family had definitely pressured him. Otherwise, he would have never gone down there to save him. Teacher John's silence had confirmed it all. Teacher Tao then admitted that the transfer student's courage was commendable, but there was nothing they could do. No one in there could solve the problem now. They'd be lucky if they could just break the barrier before their friend gets up there. The mushroom continuously pummeled the area where Hei would have been standing. Teacher John couldn't bear how tragic it was. Hei would probably have been beaten to a pulp already. The monster looked like it was thoroughly enjoying itself when Hei suddenly grabbed its fist to stop it. Both Teacher John and the monster were stunned. The boiling blood effect had activated. So now, it was Hei's turn to strike. He struck the monster with his sword, sending it flying to the other side of the arena. The monster scrambled up to its knees, and it spotted a light from the sky. It was Hei's sword descending. At the last second, the monster caught it with its palms. Then Hei activated the Dark Sword Heart, Thunder. The tip of the blade released a dark orb that hovered just inches away from the monster's face. Then it exploded. Only a foot was left of the monster. Its spores spread, and Teacher John was amazed that he took it down in just one devastating hit. But Hei sensed something else. He looked to the sky and saw another monster there. It was almost the exact same monster, except this one had a single, large eye on its mushroom cap, and its mushroom cap spun away from its head. Then the mushroom cap released a barrage of spikes. They formed into missiles and rained down on Hei. Hei braced himself for the incoming attack. The monster showered them with missiles, relentlessly. All of the other students panicked and scattered. There was a barrier outside the arena, so they had to run in every direction imaginable. Hei made a hand gesture to activate the stolen golem. Shield formation. The students were immediately worried, since its area of effect was incredibly wide. Escape was utterly impossible. One was second from a direct hit. It detonated right by the student's face. The colossal blast set off a devastating domino effect. The remaining missiles detonated in sync. The student steeled himself for impact. But to his utter shock, he was safe. They erupted in cheers, celebrating their survival. Yet at the same time, they wondered who orchestrated such a massive scale. Defensive formation. It was truly colossal, one that sapped incredible magical power and cultivation. They already knew for certain that it had to be one of the year's top students. For that year, the shield's energy permeated everything. Ian realized that Hei lacked true ruthlessness. He'd actually save his classmates, even when there was absolutely no need. Why save those with poor grades? And remember, those top students, when they take the Cultivation University exams, they would surely target him. Hei's magical power neared depletion, but he assumed the same. For the mushroom-capped beast hovering above. Suddenly, it disintegrated. Gritting its teeth, the monster vanished. Instantly, it appeared beside Hei. Hei instantly kicked his sword towards it and jumped away, just before the monster's punch connected. He put crucial distance between them. Yet in the blink of an eye, the monster was already right behind him. He parried its punch with his sword. His sword crackled with black static as he swung it again. It instantly beheaded the monster, sending its body reeling back. But in an instant, its head regenerated, good as new. Once Hei infused the blade with lightning magic, he could effortlessly sever its head. But with its head regenerating, it meant the vital point wasn't the head at all. He suspected the true vital point lay hidden in its torso. The monster then unzipped its face to reveal a single eye in the center of its forehead. Then, in a flash, it vanished. Hei registered its renewed burst of speed, but he pinpointed its reappearance and attacked there. The monster dodged, then landed a brutal punch to his side, sending him flying, spitting blood. The monster then circled him at lightning speed. It moved so fast, it left an afterimage, and relentlessly continued its circling assault, even against this barrage. He skillfully blocked its furious attacks. Blow after blow rained down continuously. He took hits on several parts of his body, but he stood his ground, unyielding. Teacher John felt a pang of disappointment, seeing him on the losing end. After all, he genuinely believed the transfer student could actually turn the tables. Teacher Tao, however, insisted it was hopeless. From the very beginning, there was no way for the student to win, with such an immense power gap. Yet, for a transfer student to fight, even with such a clear disadvantage, he was undeniably impressive. His raw power alone could rank him in the year's top 10. Ian watched the continuous exchange of blows, growing increasingly impatient. Why wasn't he using the move he used to defeat her? He was pushed back. The monster was impossibly fast, making it incredibly hard to keep up, especially its explosive burst of speed right before an attack. Even defending with all his might, he could only block a small fraction of its blows. Having sustained 150% damage, his boiling blood skill had now activated. He assumed his combat stance and charged forward. He raised his sword high. Teacher John was utterly confused. He'd taken a stance, but wasn't moving. He thought he'd given up, but then he unleashed a skill called the Heavenly Law of Annihilation. The sheer power even shot up to Teacher John's location. It even shattered the barrier. Teacher Tao was utterly surprised that the barrier had shattered so easily, when he couldn't break it even with all his efforts. It made him feel unworthy of being a teacher, and he even considered quitting. The monster's body was utterly gone. He acquired a Durian Fiend Core. After a period of cultivation and growth, it could be controlled by a Beast Master to assist them in combat. The system urged him to complete the ritual process for the Heavenly Law of Annihilation. He deftly performed hand gestures, ultimately completing the profound ritual. Teacher John was utterly spellbound. He hadn't even clearly seen the final strike. He then told Teacher Tao that with Hei's power, he could easily be more than just a top 10 in his grade. He could even rival the very few at the absolute pinnacle. But Teacher Tao offered no reply, lost in his own feelings of inadequacy. Later that day, Hei and Ian strolled through a bustling park. Hei had ascended to the 9th layer of the condensation realm, meaning he could now impart advanced techniques to others. Ian checked her phone and saw Hei was absolutely trending. Everyone was calling him the biggest dark horse, transfer student, and that he's guaranteed admission into the top cultivation universities. She then noticed him gesturing in the air, so she asked what exactly he was doing. He simply replied that he was merely paying his health insurance. He sent 30% of his cultivation experience and merit points gained from his session straight to the divine dragon. He noticed he wasn't instantly healed anymore. It only healed him after his health insurance payment was received. He then noticed something had changed with Ian. The payment meant for her was now blocked by a sinister dark cloud. He watched intently as the black cloud rapidly enveloped the sky. It covered a vast area all around them. It was the black abyss, forbidden domain. They wouldn't be able to get in or out, and the inside and outside were completely invisible to each other. This formation was typically set up when someone wanted to eliminate a witness, to silence them. Suddenly, a kunai was thrown at them. Hei blocked it using his hand golem, but the kunai was rigged. It exploded instantly upon contact. Ian tried to create some distance, but she got stuck in a puddle of sinister dark liquid. It engulfed her. Hei watched the smoke clear, amused by their cunning technique. They had imprinted a small-scale explosion formation onto a kunai and used an incessant battle mansion technique to drag a disciple inside. Suddenly, Hanako charged at him. She swung her sword, and he expertly blocked it with his own. She swung it again, striking his hand, but he noticed she'd only used the flat of her blade. He then let his sword clatter to the ground. Hanako leaped back, creating space between them. He asked if she'd gone through all that trouble just to disarm him. She explained her father ordered her to kill him, as he was a rival for her path to higher education. But she disliked doing things that way. So, she planned to take his weapon and report him dead, on the condition he leave the country and abandon all thoughts of college entrance exams. Otherwise, as long as he appeared in school and at the top rank, the insect wouldn't let him go. Her sword glowed. The system informed him that the post-payment mission for the weapon, the Cloud Ruin Guide, had been triggered. A battle of supremacy then commenced. Both of them began to be enveloped by a dark smoke. She asked him what was happening. She leaped and settled onto a branch. Her eyes widened in shock at the unfamiliar place. She then jumped to the roof. She was bewildered how she'd ended up there. He explained it was the realm of past reflections. It was a secret realm where one could only view past memories, but never interfere. The advanced blade had connected to her, so she immediately triggered the post-payment mission. After taking it, the post-payment mission forcibly pulled them into the realm of past reflections. She saw that the stolen blade had vanished from her hands. He told her the original body of the advanced paid blade should still be in the secret realm. If they don't find it, the blade would not return to his hand. They heard someone singing. The song sounded familiar to her. She saw someone sprinting towards the house. It was Hanako, but much younger. When she reached the door, she called out to her dad that she was home. Her eyes widened in horror. Everyone inside was dead. She cried out for her older sisters and brothers. She saw her mom, a sword plunged into her torso. Then someone noticed her. It was the senior brother. Confusion clouded her thoughts. Why was he wearing the insect's robes? She demanded to know what he was doing. A creepy grin spread across his face as he crept up behind her. Back when Hua was just a 5th grader, Xianhui leaped deftly onto the branches. She then unleashed a flurry of knives, every one hitting its mark. Bullseye! She then gracefully jumped back down. From a nearby branch, a woman told her that her technique was even better than hers at that age. It was her older sister, Hua Qianjing. She pointed out that Xianhui had missed one target, the one hidden behind that other tree. Without hesitation, Qianhui hurled a knife towards it. Qianjing's eyes widened in surprise at what she did. She released a second knife. Its purpose, to alter the first knife's trajectory mid-air. And just like that, the knife struck its target. Then she launched another knife, which slammed into the tree. The impact was so powerful, it left a gaping hole. Qianjing leaned in for a closer look. It was absolutely unbelievable. Qianhui had forced the knife from behind. She wanted to know if she'd hit the mark. Qianjing confirmed that she had passed with flying colors. And since it was getting late, they decided to head back home. Qianhui cheerfully told her dad they were home. Her dad patted her head and asked about her practice. She proudly shared that she'd hit every single target, even the tricky one hidden behind the big tree. As they conversed in the background, someone was vigorously slashing wood. It was Hua Zhang of the Hua clan. She noticed how much his blade techniques had improved yet again. Qianjing then asked their dad, "Are you really going to teach him the family's iron wall blade technique?" Their dad admitted he was seriously considering it, although the boy wasn't of their direct lineage. He had been with them for 3 years now, and from his observations over these past few years, he was incredibly polite and pure-hearted. Zhang would often bring him tea and worked diligently, pushing through pain and exhaustion. He was also honest and took full accountability. So the master truly believed he was a good disciple, until a sword suddenly sliced through the chair, just as the master himself was fatally stabbed, directly into the center of his chest. He demanded why Jung would commit such an act. Jung coolly declared he was never truly one of them. He revealed his true birth clan, the Ying. He changed his name, infiltrating for 6 long years, all to master their clan's iron wall blade technique. Now that he had finally mastered it, it was only natural for him to eradicate the entire clan. The master threatened that even if he killed him, the others were still out in the courtyard, and they wouldn't let him escape unscathed. Suddenly, someone rattled the door. It was Qianjing. She struggled to walk toward her father, despite the grievous chest wound she bore, but didn't last long. He trembled in horror, as his own daughter perished before his eyes. Overcome with rage, he roared, "This beast actually poisoned his own family." Jung casually replied that the Ying clan had always lived by the brutal principle, lure a move, destroy a clan. He mused it was a slight pity that his youngest daughter wasn't home yet from school, since he was quite optimistic about her talent. But as if on cue, she cheerfully announced her return. The master desperately begged him to spare his little daughter. Jung assured him, "Don't you worry. Since Qianhui's spiritual root is of such high quality, I plan to erase her memories and adopt her as my own daughter. But I won't let you keep waiting too long. Once Qianhui enrolls in university, he planned to seize her powerful spiritual root and reunite the real father and daughter." By the time he finished speaking, the master was already lifeless. Jung greeted Qianhui right at the entrance. He coldly stated he'd grown bored of waiting, so he slaughtered her family to pass the time. She dropped her bag, instantly vowing to kill him. She hurled knives at him, but he merely stood his ground. He then effortlessly blocked them with his sword. He recognized her use of the omnidirectional, flying dagger technique. It specialized in hitting the opponent's blind spot, and Qianhui was the absolute best at it in their clan. But to him, who had already mastered the iron wall blade technique, it was utterly, completely useless. A dagger struck the roof. One dagger landed mere inches from Jung's eyes, but he swiftly grabbed her by the neck, shoving her down with such immense power that she instantly lost consciousness. Then he activated the heart-bewitching curse. From that moment on, she became his adopted daughter and was named Rugasaki Hanako. He planned to bring her to the Ying clan and train her thoroughly until the day she woke up. She called him father. Jung then started a fire, burning the entire house. They left soon after. In the present time, Hanako watched the entire building burn. She stood there completely dazed. A wave of resentment and anger washed over her towards Jung. He reminded her that she couldn't interfere, but she was already gone. She wielded her sword, intent on killing him. But the moment her sword made contact, it shattered. Jung, who was walking away, felt a slight disturbance. The younger Hanako asked her father what was wrong, but he replied it was nothing. He just thought someone was approaching. They then continued to walk away. Once they returned, he would arrange for someone to teach her the Eastern tongue. The present Hanako trembled. She sobbed loudly. She felt utterly betrayed by the man she had called father. The system notified her that the scene had changed. The realm of past reflections had transformed into an interactive, tangible scene. They were instructed to find the key item, the Cloud Ruin Guide. She paid close attention to the notification. After that, they walked into the burnt house to see what they could find. She could take it back as a memento. Her divine sense detected something there, but it was buried very deep. He helped her dig it out. He used the golem hand and retrieved the items. She saw his blade, but he replied that it wasn't his, for it was truly hers. He handed it over, leaving her utterly bewildered as to why. He clarified it was a relic left behind by her own father. This very item guided her to rediscover her true self. It was truly fated to be hers all along. He also presented her with the blade manual, another gift from her father. This blade manual, specifically, was crafted to counter the formidable iron wall blade technique. He immediately sensed her distress and asked what was wrong. She revealed that this technique was incredibly grueling to cultivate. Reaching even the first layer could demand decades of effort. Yet, she simply couldn't afford to wait that long. Even if she could wait, Rugasaki Shoichi would swiftly discover that she's no longer the meek person he knew. But he simply told her she no longer had to wait. She questioned his meaning when suddenly he gently placed 2 fingers on her forehead, allowing his immense energy to surge forth. Instantly, the intricate moves and mental incantations were directly poured into her mind. The breaking blade technique had been instantly advanced to her. A moment later, the system notified her that repayment for the breaking blade technique would be personally completed by her. Throughout this process, 30% of her cultivation, experience, and merit points she gains would be paid to him as interest. Startled, she asked what that was. He clarified it was the system panel. She'd only see it once she accepted his advance payment. If she refused to accept, she'd still owe him interest. But, he added, the advance payment could also be withdrawn. Without a moment's hesitation, she dropped to her knees and bowed deeply to him. He officially accepted her as his disciple and promptly told her to quickly rise. He reminded her that she had just become his disciple. He lamented not having many good things to give her, so he promised her he'd soon bestow upon her a set of magical robes. With that, the post-payment mission for the Cloud Ruin Guide was officially completed. Shinwei then watched the sun begin to rise. She then quickly checked the distinct mark on her hand. He had explained earlier that with the blood curse, they had truly become master and disciple, forever linked by a single, shared health bar. From that moment forward, all damage she suffered would be endured by him, her master. He also reminded her the blade possessed a boiling blood effect. The more damage she takes, the stronger her attack power becomes. Someone then asked why she was in a daze. Kaku told her their father was talking to her. Shoichi then stated that, even though Hanako exposed a flaw in her personality during the exam, it was a good thing she saw the error of her ways. She killed those who stood in her way, and even brought him a treasured blade. Shoichi was glad his years of nurturing her hadn't been in vain. But then, she became confrontational. She told him that there was something she didn't understand, and she wanted to ask him about it. Kaku immediately called her out for not using honorifics. She then asked them if their deeds truly deserved honorable titles. Shoichi glared at her, demanding what she meant. He asked her if she doubted whether the path he had chosen over the years was righteous. She replied that he preached righteousness, like benevolence, propriety, wisdom, and sincerity, but then secretly committed acts like robbery, looting, murder, arson, and annihilating an entire clan. Kaku instantly got mad at her. He defended that everything their father had done was for the sect. She tied her hair into a bun. As she replied, they knew small etiquette, but had no great righteousness. She stated they were meticulous in small details, but lacked great virtue. She used a moon crescent headpiece to hold her bun. This was a high-grade item that could reduce the spiritual energy she consumed when activating spells. She continued, telling them how they cared about minor matters but disregarded honor and shame. They feared authority, but didn't cherish kindness. She removed her clothing, revealing a horse face. Magical skirt. It increased the power of spiritual energy. Activated moves by 30%. Plus, the outfit automatically repairs itself by absorbing spiritual energy. Shoichi instantly noticed the energy condensing in her hand. He immediately pulled out several swords, grabbing one for himself. Qianhui declared that the weak would be subservient, and the strong had become nothing but bandits. Kaku couldn't take it anymore and lunged at her, but before his attack could even land, she'd already kicked him hard in the face, sending him flying clear outside. Shoichi realized she'd figured out their plan. He was done pretending as well. He called for his clan to gather. Everyone arrived as fast as they could, facing her down. He ordered them to capture her. They attacked her all at the same time. A bald man lunged at Qianhui with his sword. She blocked it with her sword sheath, then kicked him hard in the head. Another attacked, and she sliced him clean in half. While she was still moving, several shuriken were thrown at her. She threw her sword straight at the attacker, piercing his neck. The attacker immediately fell, while the others stared in surprise. They quickly surrounded her. When she jumped in to retrieve her sword, they all attacked simultaneously, and she blocked them all with her sword. They kept the pressure on her, hoping to overwhelm her. So, while they pressed their swords against hers, another tried to stab her from the side. She saw it and activated an instant wall. Lightning flashed. The attackers were all hit simultaneously. She then surged right through the roof. One attacker looked around for her. The man directly under the roof's hole was cut down. She did it in an instant, while still crouched low. Another man took the opportunity to strike her. She sliced his arm, then moved on to the next person. She cut off his head. She continued defeating them all. Those men couldn't believe they were all losing to just one girl. They tried to hold the line, not breaking formation. The others just watched from the sidelines. They were the wiser ones indeed. Those idiots who engaged in the fight actually thought they could win with numbers alone. But that kid was personally chosen by their sect leader, even though she came from the outside and hadn't inherited his martial talent. But when it came to the blade, her skills were second to none within the sect. Okawa Minta, one of the In sect's 3 sword masters, knew that Qianhui wouldn't stop until one of the In sect's 3 sword masters stepped in. Nagano Nakayusu, also one of the In sect's 3 sword masters, agreed with him. So he asked Minta why he wasn't joining the fray, as he had just been watching from the sidelines. The whole time, Minta wasn't an idiot. The other 2 were watching. He wasn't about to jump in and become cannon fodder. And besides, his quick draw technique was all about that one. Perfect moment, so he had to wait for an opening. After a while, the corpses scattered. Qianhui was already exhausted. She even struggled to stand straight. Minta saw this as his chance. He drew his sword and charged at her. She sensed him, so she glanced behind her. And in the blink of an eye, she was slashed. Blood squirted from her body, and the assailant wore a wide, chilling grin. Then, she was powerfully shoved. In sensed something was wrong. She could tell that Qianhui's aura had weakened. It made her ask, "Hey, if you have no plans on stepping in." He didn't expect her to be concerned for Qianhui's safety. He thought she'd be furious with Qianhui. After all, Qianhui had trapped her in that formation for a while. But it was nothing to In. She'd been able to get out easily. When she got out, they were gone. And for a second, she thought he'd run off with the enemy. He then revealed he actually planned to help. He had erected a barrier around the building. It was a golden light barrier, and it covered the whole area. In couldn't understand why. His idea of helping was to trap everyone from the In sect, but that also trapped Qianhui in there too. He almost let it slip, saying it was fine, as long as the dragon took the damage for her. But he quickly corrected himself, insisting he'd take the damage instead. Plus, with the boost from his boiling blood effect, he had faith in Qianhui. If things went south, he'd jump in, but right now, he wanted to make absolutely sure that not a single one of those vile bastards got away. The revenge they wanted was to wipe them all off the map. Meanwhile, Qianhui lay in a growing pool of her own blood. Minta gloated, confident in his one-hit kill. Suddenly, he watched her stand, trembling but defiant. He couldn't believe she was still alive. He'd sliced right through her neck. He quickly tried to recall the last second and realized she'd blocked it. At the very last second, she was incredibly lucky, but Minna was now even more determined. The second time, he charged straight at her. She unleashed spirit object control. The floorboards around them shattered, floating into the air before being hurled at Minta, but cheap tricks like that wouldn't stop him. The boiling blood was in effect, and damage was at 30%. She retorted it wasn't meant to stop him. It was just to make him draw his blade early. Then she lunged, attacking him. She was caught off guard when her strike was blocked. Minta sneered, informing her that even without the first move, advantage of his quick draw technique, his speed was still enough to parry. She activated the breaking blade technique, and instantly, her sword passed through the blocking blade, allowing her to slash him. After that, the system processed the blade of crushing momentum. Post-payment mission progress. She had to use Blade of Crushing Momentum 5 times in battle. This technique consumes a large amount of spiritual energy after a successful parry. It ignores the opponent's block to directly strike the enemy behind their weapon. At the moment, her spiritual energy was too low, so she was advised to wait for it to recover before using it. The remaining sword masters of the Yin sect, Matsunaga Yuno and Nagano Nakayasu, he witnessed the weakest among them fall. Nakayasu noticed Qianhui's defensive blade. She was completely unscathed. It made him wonder how she'd sliced through the person standing right behind them. Internally, Yo-Yo's curiosity was piqued about how that girl's cultivation level had improved so drastically. In the past, Minta's quick draw technique would have been enough to kill her several times over. He suggested that they attack together. It wasn't because he lacked confidence. He just thought, it's better if they all share the credit for taking down this girl. Nakayasu agreed, telling him he'd cover him. He unleashed his skill, Skyrending Slash. Shenhui bends swiftly to evade it, and while she's in that position, Yo charges at her. She immediately blocked his sword, but he was powerful enough to send her flying. She broke through the wall and was thrown outside. Her hand were left shaking from that heavy blade. In an instant, Yo was attacking her again. A smug, arrogant smile plastered on his face. He was able to make her drop her weapon. She immediately used spirit object control to grab hold of her weapon. But before it could land in her hand, he attacked her again. Her hand, with spirit object control, blocked the blade, but the pressure was overwhelming her. Suddenly, she was struck on her side. She wasn't expecting that. Yo commented that Nakayasu was ruthless for slicing the girl in two. Nakayasu told him to finish her already. It won't be certain until he cuts off her head. Qianhui lay there, bleeding profusely. Then Yu Yao attempted to behead her, but it left him dumbfounded. He was confused about how she was standing up again, and he also saw that even her clothes were healing. He couldn't believe that a fatal wound that nearly cut her in half at the waist healed in the blink of an eye. He wondered if it was some healing art that someone in the condensation realm could master. She used spirit object. She fought for control, determined to retrieve her sword. By this point, her boiling blood damage had reached a critical 80%. As she closed in, Yo couldn't help but notice. Nakayasu instinctively recoiled a step. Without hesitation, he launched his attack. He scoffed at her impressive healing technique, knowing full well she couldn't withstand his blade for long. Once her head was separated from her body, her healing arts would be utterly useless. She met his aggression, her sword flashing out. Their blades met with a deafening clang, locking in a furious struggle. Nakayasu simply couldn't comprehend how she had survived a sky-rending slash to her very waist, and was still fighting with such ferocity. She even parried his relentless blade with a single hand. He grimly realized she was growing stronger with every clash. He had to end this, and fast. Unleashing a barrage of sky-rending slashes, he struck again. This was an overwhelming, devastating assault. Yo, caught in the crossfire, gasped. "Are you trying to slice me up too?" he cried. Nakayasu coldly replied that his sacrifice would be remembered by the sect. But Yo vehemently refused to be cannon fodder. He leapt back, tried to escape the onslaught. But she seized him, cruelly using him as a living shield. It was gruesome. Blood splattered everywhere in a horrific spray. Nakayasu watched as blood and debris flew through the explosive chaos. When the dust settled, she was nowhere to be seen. Yet, he sensed her presence behind him and instantly retaliated. She twisted her body, miraculously evading the deadly slash. Her hand slammed into the ground. By then, her spiritual energy had fully recovered. The blade of crushing momentum was now active. He braced himself and blocked her incoming sword. He conceded she was surprisingly durable. Still, his confidence in his unparalleled sword skills remained unshaken. But then, her blade shockingly sliced clean through his own. He never saw that coming. In a terrifying blink, he was sliced lengthwise. Thank you all so much for watching. Please check out this next Giga Chad video, and I'll catch you guys next time. You can also support the channel by joining the exclusive Summon Club membership. You can also support us by simply liking this video and being awesome.